Hey there, students. Mr. Wolf here, and we're here today to talk about Edgar Allan Poe, a little bit of biographical information on him. He's definitely one of those authors. It's helpful to kind of have that background and understand where's this guy coming from, because he probably comes across, if you've read Telltale Heart or any of his other stuff, as a little bit of a creeper. So, he is considered the original godfather of mystery, horror, and suspense. And he's got a relatively short lifespan. He was born in 1809, and he died of mysterious causes in 1849. Those mysterious causes basically involve him being in this crazy, weird stupor. He's wearing somebody else's clothes. He doesn't have a clue where he is. There's some theory that he may have been kidnapped and drugged so that he could go around to different polling places and vote for some local guy. There was a term for that. I don't remember what it was. But there's all sorts of things there. He's widely regarded as one of America's finest and most controversial authors. When you dive in and you see how much is really there about him, it's really fascinating. He wrote dozens of short stories and poems, as well as one full-length novel, and he is considered the originator of the modern crime novel and horror shock genre. So, the likes of Agatha Christie and Arthur Conan Doyle and those guys who wrote about that wrote mystery novels really can owe him a debt of gratitude, as he was the one who really came up with the very first crime novel or mystery novel, and that was Murder on the Rue Morgue. Not a huge hit, but it definitely set things in motion, and other people started kind of copying and using his formula. And today it is still used. And then you have the likes of Stephen King, who pretty much traced their writing back to him. So a little bit more about Poe's biography. He experienced numerous losses and hardships in life, especially when it came to women he loved. He had, when he was young, he had a mother who died of tuberculosis. His father really wasn't even in the picture. Then he ended up being, for all intents and purposes, adopted by the Allen family, and he had a very strong relationship with the mother, not really much one with the father. The father always looked at him as being kind of a failure. He was, a very emotional kid, prone to emotional fits. He didn't really take orders well. He wasn't a very good student. All sorts of things that made him subpar, basically. And then the mother died there. Poe also had a very, very strong relationship with what became his wife, Annabelle Lee, and she died as well. Now, weird side note on that one. She was his first cousin, and for the period of time that they did have, I think it was like 7 years. They had a very strong relationship. It was even described as being like one where people saw them in public and envied how much they truly seemed to love each other. And yet he still lost her as well before he ended up dying. So he struggled as a result with all these different losses, with alcoholism, probably some levels of depression. There's also some speculation that he delved into opium a little bit as well. And he was not a very particularly happy guy. He was a scathing critic, so he would write up critical analyses of other people's writings, and he was usually not very polite or nice about it, so he didn't exactly make a lot of friends. He saw them as being threats or subpar to him, and who knows what. But all that led to his kind of style of writing. And while he's considered an American Gothic author, he focused on the human psyche and emotion. Now, during this time period, there were a lot of people writing about how humanity can rise above its station and do wonderful things. This is the 1800s, right, where America is expanding and so on. But he's this guy, because of his own experiences, looking at going, so, hold on a second. There are definitely some dark corners of the human mind that we can't just suppress. They're there. We should look at them. We should face those things. So his objective was often to instill terror in his readers and have them explore the less pleasant truths of reality, or the harsh realities, I guess you could say. For him, he would give you a story that would horrify you, and yet he knew you couldn't look away. And he said, yeah, that tells you something about your own mind. You are still fascinated by the macabre. You're still fascinated by these horrors and these unpleasant things. It's when there's this gruesome, car crash on the freeway and everybody wants to take a look, right? And he's like, there it is, guys, right? So Poe believed that every human was capable of unspeakable acts when put in specific circumstances, right? So his stories often have settings that feature dark medieval castles, decaying ancient estates, or at least dark places. You'll notice in Telltale Heart, there really isn't that much description, but it's this kind of dark, sort of empty setting. Characters are oftentimes, that they're male, they're oftentimes insane or dealing with some psychological issues or some level of illness. Someone has been slighted to the point that they they'll go to an extreme to resolve the issue. Or if they're female, they're beautiful and dead, Annabelle Lee or the Raven, and the Lost Lenore that he talks about there. Females are oftentimes put on a pedestal as well. They're considered angelic, if you will, and therefore out of reach in some ways. Plots also include murder, live burials, always fun, physical and mental torture, of course, and retribution from beyond the grave, as one does, right, in Telltale Heart. Although that one's a little bit iffy, but because beyond the grave is, we could argue some different things there. So for Poe, it was only in these extreme situations, in these extreme circumstances, in this pressure cooker of circumstance, that we reveal our true nature, and we get to see what really the spectrum of human nature is. So for him, the Gothic dimensions of Poe's fictional world offered him a way to explore the human mind in these extreme situations and so arrive at the central truth. What was that truth? Well, the truth was that within the nature of every human, there was a capability for both good and evil, right? We are capable of all these things. So to end this, we'll leave you with this last words of Edgar Allan Poe about writing in general. Words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of their realities. And while we're reading these stories that have, magic in them or some semi-barbaric kingdom that never really existed, these characters are in some ways relatable. They're understandable. They're things we can connect to because the human condition, the human experience is a common one. We have these emotions. We've had these experiences in some way or another, maybe not directly, not concretely, but in some other various form that we can connect to, right? And that was a big part of what Edgar Allan Poe was doing with his literature. So, as we're reading The Telltale Heart, we'll kind of get an idea of exactly what he was getting at and what his objective is with his readers. And we'll go from there. All right, thank you guys for watching, and have a great one. Bye.